I've broken a lot of my old style rules, and honestly, my wardrobe has never been better. So today we're going to look at the 10 style rules I don't follow anymore. I know some of those will be quite controversial, but these are genuinely the shifts that I have made that have improved my personal style. We're gonna count down from 10 to 1, from the rules that I have slightly outgrown, all the ways to those that completely changed how I shop and how I dress. So without further ado, let's start with number 10, and this is one where I feel some of you might disagree, but I used to have a very hard and fast rule that I'm not going to buy anything that is made out of polyester. So while I still mostly follow that rule, I have actually allowed myself to buy a couple of polyester pieces, especially if they're secondhand, where the design of the piece actually makes sense for it to be in polyester. And what this means is that if this item was made from a natural fabric, it would not have the same visual or fabric qualities that I'm looking for in an item. So two examples come to mind in here. The first one is actually mesh tops. And I always used to say, don't buy polyester as an underlayer. It's going to make you really sweaty and it's going to be very uncomfortable. But I don't know whether it's because the fabric is a mesh and so it's a little bit more breathable. But I have those gunny tops and I haven't had any issue with them. And I've actually really been enjoying wearing them under other tops, under shirts, under jumpsuits, under literally anything. And I've not had this crazy amount of sweating that I used to have when I had other polyester tops. The other type of item that I genuinely think polyester is best for is anything that is pleated. And I can speak from experience because I have those Rixo silk skirts that are also pleated, and I can't tell you how many times I've had to literally steam press them to bring back the pleats, because even with a day or two of wear, the pleats basically disappear because natural fabrics don't hold pleats unless they're sewn in that way. And this is the beauty of polyester because it's a thermal plastic. Once it's set, it stays that way. You can wash the piece, you can wear it, and the pleats aren't going to disappear. And so I have 3 different pieces that are made of 100% polyester that I absolutely love because of the pleated designs. So my marsh skirt, my Sandro coat, and more recently this pink skirt. And I don't think this will have the same visual impact if they were made out of cotton, wool, or any other natural fiber. With that said, 95% of my wardrobe is still made of natural fabrics, but I am no longer this anti-polyester snob, and I will buy something made of man-made fabrics when it actually makes sense. At number 9 is a rule that I believed for such a long time as someone that maybe has a bit of a curve at the top, and that is that you shouldn't buy stiff cotton shirts if you have curves. Now, this rule is often given to people with curves because, yes, it is true that stiffer shirts generally fall on the body rather than drape, and so things like viscose or silk or lyocell that drape nicely on the body are going to give you usually a better shape. For the longest time, I would either buy something that is from a very, very soft, almost mesh-like cotton, or I would just buy drapier fabrics. But then earlier this year, I found this Arcade blouse, and it is made of 100% cotton, but it is definitely way more structured than any of the blouses that I used to own. And because it was only £7, I decided to give it a chance, and it completely surprised me because I have worn this shirt so many times and it has become an absolute staple in my wardrobe. So the first thing I realized is that if you have a bigger chest, usually you have to buy a bigger size in a cotton shirt so it doesn't gape at the chest. And that usually means that it's also bigger everywhere else. And so it might fall off your shoulders, or if you wear it untucked, it starts to create volume where you might not necessarily have it. And so I feel like for a lot of us that have curves, we just avoid that kind of fabric like the plague. But what I realized is that if you actually tuck in the shirt in exactly the same way as I would tuck a silk blouse, it looks pretty much the same, and it still emphasizes my waist, it's still very comfortable, but it just creates a little bit more volume kind of on the top part and a little bit more structure. Now, if you're not looking for that effect, yeah, definitely avoid stiffer cotton shirts, but as someone that has the mountain style route, so that desire to feel polished, put together, more professional, I wear shirts a lot. And those slightly stiffer cotton shirts have actually become such an easy way for me to express the style route while still being very, very comfortable. And when it comes to buying things, the next rule is something that I feel we have a little bit as a prejudice, and that is don't buy anything from fast fashion because it doesn't last. Now, I don't want to be a hypocrite, and so that's why I'm going to say that this is a rule that I have definitely decided to make a little bit more flexible. So while I still buy probably most of my items, at least 2/3 of my items are pre-loved, and I try to buy as much secondhand as I can, if I'm buying something new, I often find that fast fashion is actually a good option to test drive different silhouettes. And when it comes to quality, I think if you pick natural fibers and if you pick something that is constructed fairly well, this item can actually last you a very long time. And this is where one of my most worn bags of 2025 actually comes in. This red bag from Zara. It is made of 100% real leather with cotton lining. And I've been using this at least 40 times right now. It still looks brand new. And when it comes to Zara bags, my black bag I've had for over 7 years. I've worn hundreds of times and it is still really good quality. I also buy denim from fast fashion because I just don't see the point in buying £300 denim when it's going to look quite similar and probably going to wear in quite a similar manner as well. And I know that some of you maybe don't consider Uniqlo to be fast fashion, but if you look at it, Uniqlo is absolutely fast fashion in terms of the scale of production. But I've really been loving my t-shirts, my merino tops, my trousers. It has been something that I've been wearing a lot this year. And so I feel like there needs to be a bit more nuance. If you're buying fast fashion items, wearing them once and then discarding them, obviously that's really bad. But if you're buying something because you want a certain quality or a certain silhouette and you can't necessarily find that pre-loved, I feel like it's okay to buy some things from fast fashion as long as we actually take good care of them. And longevity often depends way more on how you take care of an item, how you wear it, rather than on where it's actually from. This next rule is something that I really used to follow and I've even advised sometimes some of my friends, but it's something that I don't believe in anymore. And that is that if you don't immediately want to wear your newest purchase, then it should go back to the store. You should return it. And I used to say this because we're often the most excited about the piece when we buy it, right? Like we get this dopamine hit, we have those ideas about how we're gonna wear this piece. And usually as time goes, the excitement for the piece goes down. And so if you're already not wanting to wear something, you should return it, right? Well, last year in September, I bought this skirt from Jackwills and it sat unworn pretty much until January. And the reason why I didn't return it is because I realized that in September when I bought it, it definitely wasn't cold enough for me to wear it. And then it didn't match the capsule wardrobe that I had last autumn. And so the first chance that I had to wear the skirt was actually this year in January. And since then, it has become one of my winter staples. I've been absolutely loving wearing this skirt, and it is something that I know if I had returned, I'll have never had a chance to actually experience and to enjoy as much as I do. And so yes, it's really important when you come back and you purchase something, try it on, but ask yourself those two questions. Number one, is this item actually appropriate for the weather that I am in right now? So for example, if you're buying a t-shirt right now and you love it, but it is December and maybe you can't really wear it for the next couple of months, it doesn't mean you should return that t-shirt just because you haven't worn it in the first few days of owning it. And also ask yourself if there is other reasons why you might not be wearing this right now. For example, for me, I already had 10 bottoms that I was working with in my autumn capsule and I didn't want to add another one, especially when the colors didn't go fully well together. And so you have to check with yourself after a few days, try the piece on again and check if you're still excited. And even if you haven't worn it and you can't envision yourself wearing it in the next few weeks, if you're still excited about it and if you know that you're going to wear it when the weather cools down or when you switch your capsules, then I think it's totally okay to keep that piece even if you haven't worn it just yet. This next rule really used to trip me up, and it wasn't until this year when I started to be so much more reflective about my personal style that I actually figured out that I've made some mistakes in the past, and I almost made a mistake with this one skirt. And this rule is that if you wear an outfit and it feels bad, it means that you have to get rid of the clothes. I have a very specific situation in mind for this one. I was wearing this COS skirt and it's made out of a neoprene fabric, and I wore it with a very tightly fitted merino jumper in a crew neck. So I wore this with black tights, my combat boots. I don't think I have a photo of it, but this outfit looks quite similar to the one that I wore, and I really didn't feel like myself. I just hated it. Like there was something absolutely wrong with it and I couldn't pinpoint why. And so for a couple of months, I used to think that, well, this skirt is not the right skirt for me. I even tried to sell it and I am so glad that it didn't sell. But until January this year, I hadn't really worn it and I thought that it just wasn't my style. And then I tried it on with one of those crazy fuzzy jumpers that I had, and suddenly this little skirt started to play a really good role of grounding some of my crazier pieces while still providing a little bit of visual interest. And it wasn't until I started to reflect on what I didn't like about that previous outfit that I realized that the problem wasn't with the jumper or the skirt on their own, it was with the fact that they were both very flat in texture, they were both quite fitted, And overall, there wasn't much visual interest in the outfit, which I definitely need to feel like myself. And so now I style this skirt with knee-high boots to provide a sense of strength and toughness, with blazers, with shirts, and I avoid wearing it with my very, very plain tops and very plain jumpers because, yeah, in that way, it's going to feel like it's not enough. And I always like to think about clothes like people. There are some people that maybe you've met and you just don't jive with too well. Like, they're not bad people, you're not a bad person, you're just not meant for each other. And it's the same thing with clothes. You might love both your top and the bottom, and when you put them together, the outfit just doesn't work. And that's okay. It doesn't mean you have to get rid of all of those pieces. Now, admittedly, I got rid of that jumper, but it was because it was a little bit too tight on my neck as well, and I didn't like the shade of red, but that wasn't the reason why this outfit didn't work. And so I kept the skirt. I'm so happy I did, and it has now become one of my staples and one of my most comfortable pieces. And so the next time an outfit doesn't work, don't declutter the clothes, don't decide that it's not for you. Try and reflect what are you missing in your outfit. And by the way, this sort of style reflections is exactly what we're going to be doing in my 2026 Style Intentions workshop, which is going to take place at the end of December and at the beginning of January. I'm going to guide you through a couple of different prompts to really help you to figure out your biggest style lessons of 2025 and help you set your 2026 style goals and intentions for how you want to feel and how you want to develop your style. So at the moment, it is only $7 as part of my Black Friday offers, and you can also get a free space if you purchase any of my other services. So I'll leave the link below if you want to check it out. Now let's go back to some more rules that I don't follow anymore. Now, this next rule might get me some flack, so please be gentle, but I don't actually think that it's wrong to buy things you don't wear. Now, in the past, I used to believe that, well, if you bought something and you didn't wear it, that was a mistake, that was a waste of money, and you should definitely sell that piece and feel really guilty. And to be honest, I still catch myself doing that, but I've started to see all of the things that I don't wear as really, really useful clues that help me to figure out my personal style and clarify it even more. And I think that the pieces that you don't wear will probably teach you as much as the pieces that you do wear on the regular. And so for me, for example, I have bought a couple of sheer pieces. I bought everything pre-loved, so it's cost me almost nothing. But I find that I don't necessarily reach for a lot of those pieces. Same things with this jumper. It is quite oversized and quite textured. And even though it is perfectly appropriate for the weather, I just haven't been drawn to actually wearing it. Now, what I've realized is that the things that you don't wear are going to give you clues about your lifestyle, your preferences, and how much ease, comfort, structure, or flexibility you need in your personal style. And so for me, for example, I realized that one of my style words is actually ease. And sheer pieces are not necessarily easy to style and easy to wear. I haven't necessarily figured out very easy outfit formulas, very easy ways to wear those pieces. And so because of that, I'm not actually reaching for them. And so if I hadn't bought those pieces, I'll have never figured that ease is actually one of my 3 style words and something that I absolutely crave when I'm getting dressed. And same thing with this big jumper. I realized that when I buy something that is very, very crazy, when it's something that is way too funky and interesting, and that's literally the only thing that I love about it, but it's not necessarily in a shape that makes me feel strong or in a way that gives me contrast to my overall wardrobe, I don't actually reach for those things. I don't wear them, and it's harder for me to make outfits. And so without buying those pieces and letting them sit in my wardrobe unworn, I'll have never spotted those patterns. I'll have never realized those things about my personal style. And so look at your own wardrobe and see what are the pieces that you never reach for. I think that rather than seeing them as expensive mistakes, look at buying and trying different things as part of your personal style development. And so, especially when it comes to buying trends or buying shapes or textures that I'm not familiar with, I would always buy that secondhand because I don't want to create more waste and I don't want to spend a lot of money on that. But I do think that it's important to experiment if you want to expand your style horizons. And if you're not 100% clear on your personal style, that experimentation can actually teach you a lot. Now, we're getting to the really juicy ones because I feel like those are style rules that I hear everywhere in this space, but I feel like they're not necessarily very useful. So at number 4, I used to believe that you have to declutter something if you haven't worn it in the last 6 months or in the last 1 year. And I feel like this rule is so popular because it gives people this very black and white, clear way of deciding what to keep and what to let go of. But the problem I find is that if you don't actually think through your declutters, you're either going to regret getting rid of some pieces, which I definitely have, or you're going to keep buying the same things and not actually learn any lessons. And something that I've realized is that there are pieces in my wardrobe that I don't need to wear all the time for them to actually justify being in my wardrobe. And I used to believe that everything that I'm not wearing in rotation all the time, I have to get rid of it. But that's no longer something that I believe. And I've realized that there will be pieces that I only wear maybe once or twice a year, maybe it's more of a special occasion piece, or even if it's not, like it might be a piece that I'm only in the mood for a couple times a year. And for me personally, that's okay. And for example, this jumpsuit that I'm wearing today is something that I bought over 2 years ago, and I think I only wore once. But every time I try to declutter it, I tried it on and I still liked it. But I realized that the reason why I wasn't wearing it wasn't actually because it was fitted, it was because my chest was really exposed, it's very, very low cut, and I personally don't enjoy that. And the only time when I wore it and my boobs were kind of out, I did not like how I felt. It made me very, very self-conscious. So this item sat unworn for over a year, but I've recently pulled it out and tried it over my mesh top, and now I'm wearing it over the shirt. And honestly, I'm loving this again. And I know that I've recently been going to shops and I see jumpsuits and I'm like, this is so nice, this is so cool, I would love a jumpsuit. And then I just remember that I already have that at home. And I know that if I had got rid of this jumpsuit just because I haven't worn it in the past year, I have probably bought something very, very similar and felt really silly because I got rid of something that I could 100% wear, but I decided not to. And let me know if you want me to make a separate video on decluttering, because I have some pretty strong opinions and I have found a way that works for me. But I definitely don't declutter things just because I haven't worn them in the last 6 months or a year. This next rule is something that you hear so much, and that is that quality is the most important thing in a piece. I used to be, and I think I still am, a quality snob. So like I said, I wouldn't buy many polyester things. I don't have acrylic jumpers and all of that stuff. I usually try to buy things that are made of natural fibers, well constructed from good brands. And that has genuinely created a wardrobe that I'm very happy with, that I'm very proud of. But quality on its own doesn't justify me buying a piece that I'm not in love with. And I know that this lesson took me a long time, because I remember even 3, 4, 5 years ago, when I was decluttering certain pieces, I realized that there were so many silk blouses that I kept selling. And I couldn't figure out, because silk is such a nice high quality fabrics, I have found those blouses at a really inexpensive price. Why wasn't I wearing them? Why was I decluttering them? And it wasn't maybe until last year that I realized that I have a need for visual interest. And so quality on its own doesn't make an item a staple in my wardrobe. And so for example, I had this vintage black blazer that was 100% wool, really nice quality, it fitted me well. I never wore it because it was just a little bit too blunt and too boring for me. Versus this black blazer or my leather blazer are both pieces that I have reached so much more for, because I genuinely love not just the quality of the piece, but also the silhouette, the vibe, and how I feel in it. And so yes, quality is important, but it's not the thing that is going to make you wear something. I feel like you need to have at least one other thing that you love about the piece to justify keeping it. And if you want to know more about my whole framework, check out this video right here, because I went into so much more detail on how to make sure that you buy pieces that actually stay in your wardrobe and you wear a lot. And number 2 is probably the most expensive lesson for a lot of people, and I've actually seen that in the comments of my most recent video because I spoke about it there, and that is that if you can't afford the real thing, just buy a dupe. And I think that buying dupes and replicas and something that is close enough or good enough but isn't the real thing, most of the time it doesn't satisfy your craving for the real thing. And so a question that I always ask myself is, if someone could actually give me for a very reasonable price the thing that I want, would I still want to buy this dupe or replica or whatever that I'm considering? And 95% of the time, the answer is no. And the 5% that I find that to be honest, I would actually be really, really happy even with this dupe, is when the dupe on its own is good quality, is something that I like, and it pretty much has the same characteristics that I'm looking for from the original piece. But 95% of the time, buying these good enough but not actually the real thing pieces don't satisfy your craving. You're still going to find yourself thinking about the real thing, but with the added consequence that now you've actually spent some of that money towards something that you don't even love that much. And for me, there are a couple of pieces that I have genuinely had to save up for to buy the real thing. One of them is the mesh skirt. I've talked about this many times on this channel. Similarly, with the Sandro coat, I've wanted this for a couple of years. This Arcade pink bag, which I talked about in the previous video, and even this green bag that I saved up for a couple of months. And every single time I wear the real piece that I wanted, I feel amazing. First of all, I get a lot of compliments, especially on the coat. So many people just come and ask me, where is this from? And you look amazing. I love your coat, all of that. But I know that I'm just so happy that I own those pieces. And I'm really glad that I didn't buy a dupe for the coat or a dupe for the bag, because I would genuinely not have worn them and I'll still have wanted the real piece. And now we've arrived at number one, and this is something that I feel is going to be contrary to the previous point, but I've learned that expensive things aren't always better. And I'm not talking here just about quality and construction. I really love following Anna Aronova, I think it's her name on Instagram, and she goes to a lot of expensive higher end stores and brands, and she absolutely destroys how they're constructed, the fabric composition. So all of that is something that has made me realize that just because something retails for hundreds of pounds or even thousands, it's not actually better. That's one part of the equation. But what I want to talk about here is that buying things firsthand and spending a lot of money on them isn't actually the flex that I used to think that it is. And I don't know, this made me seem maybe a little bit immature, but I think in my early 20s, my goal, my dream was to just be able to buy designer clothes or the brands that I really wanted firsthand. And I thought that when I'm able to do that, I've actually made it, right? I've become successful. Now, in the past couple of years, I've managed to acquire secondhand and firsthand some of the expensive pieces that I used to want when I was younger. And what I've realized is that all of the pieces that I've bought pre-loved, some of them I love, some of them I don't. I've gotten rid of the pieces that I don't love or don't fit me anymore. That's fine. But with the few pieces that I've bought new and I've paid full price for them, I'm really struggling to let those pieces go. So as an example, this pair of shorts from Mash and this dress from Sandro, I think they were both around the £200 mark. And I've only worn them a few times, and I bought them when I was actually in my slimmest, skinniest period. And the problem is that I am not at that weight anymore, and both of those pieces don't fit me. But because I spent so much money compared to my usual 5, 10, 20 pounds that I spent on my pieces, I spent literally 10 times, 20 times more than I usually spend. I'm really feeling that pain and that guilt. And so I know that if I try to sell the dress, probably make around 40, 50 pounds at most, if that. Same thing for the shorts, maybe about 30 to 40 pounds. And so that loss of 150 pounds and feeling like I made a silly mistake is really preventing me from selling it. But at the same time, keeping them and not being able to wear them because they don't fit me is also a little bit silly, right? And so I'm at this limbo with some of those expensive pieces, and I really don't like feeling this way. And so what I've learned for myself is that for a variety of different reasons, it is so much better for me to buy high quality pieces that I'm excited about, pre-loved. And there is literally pretty much no reason to buy any of those pieces new. The only two pieces that I have bought new that I don't regret are the mesh skirt and the Sandro coat that I just talked about. And it is because I waited for such a long time to buy them, and I wanted them for a really long time. And also the skirt has an elasticated waist, and the coat is actually quite spacious and it's not fitted in any way. So I know that if I go up a size or down a size, I can still wear that and it won't look bad. And so that emotional weight of buying things full price, for me, at this moment of time, is not worth it. Now, depending on where you are at your style journey, your income, and your preferences, you might have absolutely no problem with buying more expensive things. But for me at the moment, with how I prefer to shop and how I want to express myself, I've just realized that buying firsthand and spending a lot of money on pieces just isn't really a good option right now. So that was a lot. I feel like I've done a little bit of a confessional, but I hope that you found this video valuable. Let me know which of those rules resonated with you the most. And if you want to see how I decide whether something makes sense to bring in my wardrobe or not, check out this video right here. I'll see you there.